All right, Dave and I have already made the call. Seahawks are going to the playoffs this year. I don't care what Vegas says. We don't care what the talking heads say. We have determined they are going to the playoffs this year. They're certainly going to be better than the, over-under of 7.5 wins on the season. And again, barring injury, that's always the wild card. But we've given you a reason by reason. We're up to reason number 2 as to why they are going to make their way into the postseason. We're taking it one reason at a time. Top 5. Number 2 for you, Dave, is
Sam Darnold. Real easy. Individual player, he has to play well. He has to be good Sam Darnold. And we can go back and look at, he was the number 3 pick overall in the first round, and he's had, I think you could say, pretty much a career of futility, mostly. Mm-hmm. But then last year in Minnesota, and this is interesting. I think coaching has become so much more important than it used to be. And I think that certain voices, it's just a very valuable position. But I think, they were able to unlock Sam Darnold. And I think that's a good way to put it because he's a good athlete. He can throw. I mean, he's got a great arm. He's got all the tools. But you could just see that there was something holding him back. And especially, when he's quoted on the sidelines, and it became this very famous quote that I'm seeing ghosts out there. Yeah. And I think getting the right message into that brain and, just trying to put it in certain number of words. I always talk about, good coaching is like, if you go get a golf lesson, every once in a while somebody will say something that just clicks with you, like that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happened in Minnesota. Problem is at the end of the year, he had the game against Detroit where they lost 31-9. It was a playoff team, and then they go into the playoffs and lose 27-9 to the Rams. So
and he was sacked 9 times in that game.
Gets sacked 9 times, and and the thing is, you can't say anything that Sam Darnold has done that's negative is because of a lack of physical ability. Right. It's just that you can tell that something gets in his head, and so. The famous quote from the play-by-play guy in Minnesota, get rid of it. He's holding on to the ball, And that was just, it just all of a sudden I think everybody flashed back to Sam Darnold. He can't handle it. He's just not a good quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback.
PTSD. We have PTSD from the early part of his career.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I spent a ton of time talking about him. Long before he was ever a thought for the Seahawks. We thought Geno's the guy. They're going to re-sign Geno, but he was such a fascinating conversation because of who he was his first 6 years and then who he became last year. And you and I would talk about it each week, look at the stats and go, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Where was he the first 6 seasons?
All right. Well, and remember that guy used to be Matthew Stafford that we would talk about all the time. It was like that was the one quarterback we'd talk about outside of Russell Wilson. And Sam Darnold became that guy once Stafford got really good. So, and I think he's a good example. I think Baker Mayfield is a really good example of, unlocking a player. And all of a sudden, Mayfield, his career was resurrected. Certainly
second leading passer in the league last year.
Yeah. So, and certainly the same thing with Sam Darnold last year. So, I think now, look, there was a couple of games, and we talked about this before, Bob, but he was 63% against the Jacksonville Jaguars through 241 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
That's not good.
They won. They won 12-7.
They won in spite of.
Yeah. So, but then, fast forward, and they either came up here and put either 27 or 30 on us. And that play that he made where he stepped up in the pocket, throws, a sideline route right in between the safety and the corner and cover 2, and he's on the run, and it was a perfect throw. And by the way, he had just gotten sacked. Mm-hmm. And so, it was like a 3rd and 12 or something, or maybe it was a 2nd down and 15 or something like that. But, it wasn't a good situation for him, and no problem, performing in front of the 12s. There was lots of noise, and he steps up and just silences the crowd. So that's the guy I remember from last year. But you can go and find some good games earlier in his career, but it's just never been consistent. So and I'm hoping that Sam Darnold is going to be that guy. And I think the other good thing about it, Bob, is that it's a pretty easy deal if it doesn't work out for the Seahawks. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's going to suck if it doesn't work, but you have a pretty easy out. What is it, around
after
30
1
million?
year?
Yeah, and after 1 year, you can get out of the contract.
Yeah, no, they set it up well to. It's there's risk, but there's big reward for them if it works out. And I can't put him on my top 5 reasons they're going to make it, but I did put Kubiak is my number 2 reason, and that includes Sam Darnold. And it's sort of blind faith in what he's going to do for the entire offense. Because last year, Geno did some great things, but it was all everything was put on Geno because they could not run the ball. They were horrible. The line didn't play well. The backs didn't really have anywhere to go. It just was such a huge element of the game that I felt like opposing defenses looked at and go, well, we don't have to worry about that. And I know they weren't saying that, but really it wasn't their big concern. It was, how do we stop Geno? How do we stop DK and JSN? It wasn't about the running game because it didn't exist. So Kubiak, to me, is a guy that I'm putting a lot of faith in based on what he's done in the past and what he's going to be able to do with this line. How his scheme will help this line, because we're all worried about the O-line. Do they have the pieces? Do they not? They think they do. So I'm buying into their faith, into the pieces they have, that they can utilize them in a way that's going to accentuate what they do well and steer them away from what they don't do well. Much like Mark Schlereth has talked about many times, like, hey, don't blame me because I messed that up. You're the donkey that put me out there knowing I don't do this well. So I'm putting faith in Kubiak's vision for the offense because to me that's the biggest unknown on this team. We have no idea. There's so much new on that side of the ball. There's Darnold, there's Cooper Kupp, there's MVS, there's Gray Zabel. There's all these new pieces on that side with a new coordinator. So we're going, what is that going to look like? We don't really know, but I'm just putting faith in his ability to just change the entire structure of what we saw last year. Not that it's going to look night and day, but that there's going to be a running game. There's going to be a focus on the ground game. That it's going to be something that the defense has to account for. Whereas last year, I think they went in there knowing we can pin our ears back because we don't have to worry about them running the ball. Let's get after the quarterback.
Yeah, and they just entirely deserted the run at times. It was like we don't really have a choice. So, Mark Schlereth, we have him on weekly during the football season. He always talks about offensive line friendly play calling.
Right.
And Brady Henderson brought up a great stat, and it had to do with Klint Kubiak moving the pocket. So they had more plays, passing plays, where the pocket was moving. So, in other words, you're not just standing there, you're not really helping your offensive line by just a straight drop back. I mean, it's tough, but like if you move the pocket, you just give the quarterback a little bit more time. Yeah. And they had the highest percentage in New Orleans with Klint Kubiak calling the plays of moving the pocket, and that is an offensive line friendly play. Yep. So, that he can help out a ton, but you're right. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff comes down on offensive linemen, and look at this guy's terrible. He's getting beat, but a lot of times it's like, what are they asking this guy to do? Mm-hmm. So I think he can be just a huge difference, and it was a pretty big move bringing him in.
There you go. Number 2 reason that the Seahawks will make the playoffs. We're down to one more. Our top 5 reasons. Number 1 is coming your way next.